Hello and welcome to today's lesson on recreating the Minecraft launcher in Figma. I'm going to show you how we're going to take what the existing experience looks like and how we're going to wire it together into our own version. Great. So before we get started, you're going to want to get a free account over at figma.com. Once that's all set up, you're going to want to download a Minecraft font, and here's the link for that. Finally, if this is your first time ever using Figma or a design program like this, you're going to want to get some of the more basic skills that I'm not going to offer in this particular video. The video I've linked here is fantastic. It's about 20 minutes and it gives you a really good foundation to get started. Okay, so my goal here is to teach user experience design, and we're going to do that through the recreation of the Minecraft game launcher. So let's go ahead and start with a survey of the overall experience I showed you earlier. So this is a collection of screenshots I've taken from Minecraft running on a Mac, very similar to what you're going to see on PC. I'm going to hit Shift-2 to zoom in on this particular one right here, but this is the login screen. And if I were to enter my information here, I would be taken most likely to the news section. If I click around in the app navigation here, I could probably configure my account. I can look at the Java edition, which is the most common version of Minecraft, as far as I know. Or I could play dungeons, or I can do something a little more advanced and work on my settings. So I'm going to click on Java edition. This is going to be the screen we're going to recreate the most. Spend most of our time here because it has the most depth of what I want to work on. But then a very similar screen is going to be the dungeon screen. Now, because I looked at this on my Mac, I did not have this available. Let's go ahead and assume we just have this in our system because I want to have a similar experience. And then the settings. This can look a little boring, but I'm a UX designer. I spend a lot of time designing screens like this, and a lot of higher end function that really is useful is in setting screens like this. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and break down some key elements of what we see in these screens. What I'm seeing is we have this kind of overall operating system handle here on the launcher with our three little circles there. I'm going to call that the app toolbar or something like that. I don't know what the name of it is right now. We can always look it up later. But then there's this main area here. This is the huge image. I call it a hero image. You've got your main call to action, which is the play button. You've got information about the latest release. But you also have some sub-navigation. You can see that you're in the play area. You can also check out different installations or skins or patch notes. And then you got your overall side nav. Let's go ahead and break this down a little bit more. So at first glance, like I said earlier, we've got our main content and we have our side nav. Because I want us to design to this overall window right here, we're going to take some measurements, and that measurement for the main content is about 820 pixels wide and 600 pixels high. And then the side nav, same height, but the width is 180 pixels. If we break things down a little further, we're going to see that the side nav has, different regions. You got your account, your app navigation, and your settings. And then in the main content area, like we talked about earlier, you got your navigation for that area, main hero image, call to action, and then the meta information about that, which is the version you've downloaded. So today's video, just to be very clear, we're not going to recreate everything in depth. That is a lot of work and a lot of time. I've gone through and I've done that for you. In this part of the file, and as you might notice here, I'm navigating up and down. If you're curious about why I'm doing this video, there's some information in the project purpose. This is largely designed for the folks over at Mary's Place, but this video can be used by anyone that's new to UX design and wants to also do some Minecraft stuff. But we just talked about our getting started information here, the overall experience of what we're going to recreate, the layout stuff, and right now we're in build assets. Eventually we're going to get into the assemble and ship, which is going to be the kind of final state of things. But a lot of the work is going to be spent typically in areas like this. You're going to see loosely organized patchwork of things here, but I've gone through and I've done some work compiling a number of things for you. So I have found the font. I have a logo I've picked up here. This is not the exact most current logo that I know of, or it could be, I don't know. But it seems like there's some subtle differences throughout the years. I think this has the most recent gradient though. Moving on from that, we have our large background images. This, as far as I've seen, is very similar to the current one for the Java edition. And then we have the Dungeons editions right here. I wanted to have them without the fonts because I do want to show how to place these in here with logos and things like that. So 2 versions to grab if you want to. I've also included the links that I found these on Google Images. And if you want a gigantic green block, I have one of these largely just for the version right here where we see the latest release. I just want to have a really clean asset for that. Okay, so that's some of the raw stuff I've picked up for you. I've also gone through and done a little bit more work around layouts and assets and navigation. So again, you do not have to worry about creating this all right now. I've done this for you. This is basically a starter file to give you the assets you can do, put things together. And we're going to be doing this exercise in a couple minutes. But in here, you have the app handle or window handle. You have the sub-navigation. You've got the background image right here area, and you have the lower area, which has your meta information and your call to action, and then you've got your nav ready to go. So where did this come from? So I've put things together here for you. The fonts, font example, logos, checkboxes. I kind of grabbed these from the Google Material Designs and redid them a little bit. Call to action button. This is close, not exactly accurate to the buttons they have in Minecraft, and let me show you an example of that. So if we zoom in, you'll see they have this kind of cool 3D effect that's still pixelated. I tried a number of techniques to recreate this and I wasn't successful, so I figured let's kind of blaze forward on the meat and potatoes of this, which is just recreating the app, and then we can worry about the fine details of button recreation in a later lesson. Okay, so you have the app window controls here, the navs I've put together for you. This is for the Java edition, this is for the Dungeons edition. You'll notice there's a purple outline to these, and in the side area here you're going to see these things all in purple. These have been created into components. What's the purpose? Well, it's really handy to have these things in one area as a sort of source file, and then if I want to, I can go ahead and copy this, put it over here, and if I make a change in the original one, it'll propagate down to all these sub ones right here that I've copied elsewhere. It's a great way to kind of create it once and then use it a bunch of different places, and then if you make a big fundamental shift, like I'm going to go ahead and just make this wacky red, you see it's updated all over the place. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove this. However, I do believe I have the ability to change the instances of this, and it's not going to go back up to the top here, so that's pretty handy. Okay, I also have our components here for the bottom content, and I've also, you can see, and it's a weird drop shadow because it's on white, but the drop shadow will be a little more subtle when you see it in context. But here is a component around just the overall logo and then the brand name for the particular Minecraft version. You'll see what that means later on. And then I've also put together some navigation stuff for you here. So these are active and inactive states. What I mean by that is that if I'm in the navigation and I'm currently looking at news, what I've seen here is that the font is bolder and it's a brighter white. And then there's also a side indicator here as well. If it's inactive, like if I'm maybe in like the Minecraft Java edition, but the the news hasn't been selected. The font is a little darker, and there's no side indicator right there. There's a background that I've created for these just to make these things fully clickable in the components, and then do a little scratch pad around how I can recreate these things in my own time. Okay, let's talk about backgrounds. So we looked at in the app layout that there's a background here, and I have it flowing all the way to the top and bottom, so it's behind these two pieces right here. And the reason being is that, you know, these two pieces right here have a little bit of a drop shadow underneath them that I haven't applied yet, and so we'll do that as we wire things up to kind of see what that looks like. So I want to have the image flowing behind these. So here are our images I've prepared. Here is the news image. And here is a components, I use a settings page full of components I've put together from scratch largely. So language selection, the launcher settings, which is what we're working on in the app launcher, and specific settings around the Java edition. In later examples or lessons, I'd like to kind of go through what it means to set up these little subnavs and kind of really put a lot of detail in here. Then I just have a background image that's blank for just placeholder purposes. And then here is the Java Edition hero image, and then here's the Dungeons Edition background image. So when I went through and did this, I kind of had a copycat space where I'll just kind of like drop in an image, and then I'll recreate parts of it with different components. We'll be doing that in a little bit. And then a deeper example of that work has been done over here. So I call this the reference, and then there's the high fidelity version. So you just see images and then recreations. And finally, we're going to go to the assembly and ship. And by and large, I've just grabbed everything. Like these are all pretty much what you see right here in this hi-fi section. But in this page here, these are all wired up using the prototype function, which will be the end of this video. So let's pause for a moment. Let's talk about the user interface here. So in Figma, you're going to see I'm going to be working with across all the different pages here. And then underneath the pages, you're going to see all the different layers and groupings of things. If you're coming from Sketch, you're pretty familiar with artboards or Photoshop, but frames is how they are done here in Figma. And so this page here, or this frame here, is the news frame. This is the Java one, and they're selectable here. You can hide them. If I get really deep into these and I start really fattening the stuff out here, and I just have way too many things open, there's a trick to collapse all this stuff. And I'm a huge fan of keyboard shortcuts, so I'll kind of show a little bit about that. But right here, you have this menu. And keep in mind, we're in the browser here, so this stuff is really fast in the browser. I could be using the desktop app, but I'm using the browser. So you see where it says search, and there's a little pound sign and a /. I'm on a Mac right now, so it would be probably a control and a / on PC. But I'm going to go ahead and just do the search thing. So I'm going to do command /, and I'm going to type in collapse and collapse layers. So watch what happens when I do this one. Let's try that again. Okay, well, that is not working for me. I like to have all these things kind of collapsed. Let's try it again. Okay, there we go. A little bit cleaner. You want to keep things clean. It's really helpful in case other people come into the files, like you will probably come into my files. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab an app layout. All right. And I'm going to recreate the Java Edition screen. Paste it right here. Cool. So how do we get stuff in here? Like we have this kind of like template I've put together for you, but how do we fill it out? Let's dive a little bit into here. So we kind of like, we're going to zoom in and out a little bit here to make sure we're kind of doing the right stuff here. But if I'm looking at the hero image here, and I can see that I've got it selected right here, because I've set components up for you, you can go over here and you can see that this diamond means it's a component. Because the diamond isn't filled in with extra little diamonds, that means it's an instance of the component, which means you have the ability to kind of select up from other components. So I'm going to go ahead and select from my other background images. I'm going to do the Java one. Cool. We're getting pretty close. That's the beauty of the template I put together for you. And so you can see, and let's kind of zoom in a little bit here. So the subnav here for the main hero area is already the Java edition. I could always check it out, the dungeons, if I want to, but let's do the Java edition here. And then this little area down here, it could be the purchase. If I want to say like, you don't have this, you got to buy it. But we're just going to stick with the call to action to play. And then let's get our nav cooking up here. So I didn't make full components out of the nav overall. That's going to be for a later video, and there's a lot of variants we can do with that. But what I want to do is to show you how to select around things here. So for news, this is inactive. I can just make it active, and it's telling me we're on the news page. That's not really accurate. We're on the Java edition page. So let's go ahead and make sure that's set to inactive. And just to make things easier for folks, I did make the template for this, the app layout template. All the nav elements are inactive. You just need to find the one that you're trying to represent and make that one active. So I'm going to double click and make sure I have this selected. I'm going to make this active. There we go. Good to go. Let's blaze ahead and then redo this for all the other ones. So making sure that I have the app layout selected here. I can hit Control D or Command D to just duplicate this entire frame. And that's a really fast thing to do. That's one of my favorite things with these design programs. You can make like 4 or 5 versions of a page really fast and just change a couple small things and see all the different possibilities of what you just want to kind of test out. You'll notice with the little red lines here, things are snapping around, which is really handy. Okay, I'm going to go hit that. All right, so we're recreating the dungeons here. So back to our nav. Let's go ahead and make that Java one inactive. Let's make dungeons active. Cool. Let's make our hero area or our main content area nav set for the dungeons. Let's make our image here set for dungeons. And let's just say, hey, you don't have dungeons. Let's make sure you buy it, and let's set for purchase. Okay. We've recreated the dungeons thing here in like a minute or two. It's pretty fast once you get all this work set up for yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and make sure we have the app layout selected. Let's Control D it or Command D it. Come down here. You'll notice my cursor's turned into a hand. I'm hitting the space bar. That's how I can kind of grab and move around pretty fast. And then I'm hitting Shift 2 to kind of zoom in on the entire screen right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this inactive because we're on the settings page. We're going to make the settings active. We're going to remove that little subnav right there. We're going to remove this call to action area, and we just have this main content area right here. Let's go ahead and make this. Do we have settings for that? Let me try searching. Okay, so you can type around here to swap things out. And I'm going to do main content settings. And there we go. Easy peasy. Let's go ahead and recreate news. And so I've done the Control Command D to duplicate this. If I wanted to have a little more control of where the duplicate goes, I'm going to hit Option and drag this stuff up there. Cool. Shift 2. All right, I want to make news. And before I delete a bunch of stuff, let me see what I got to delete here. Okay, so there's no top and bottom extra content areas. There's just this main image right here, and then news is selected. Cool. All right, so I'm going to delete this, delete this. I'm going to change the background image to news. Bam, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and make this inactive. Let's make news active. And we're done. We've recreated all the screens pretty fast. I'm going to go ahead and grab all these. I'm going to head over to Assemble and Ship. And this is kind of like mirroring my process as a designer. This is kind of what I'll do in my job. I'll have this kind of organized flow of things. And I do spend a lot of time in the build assets area here. Like this is, the majority of my time will be spent in here. Just really noodling on, honestly, stuff like this. You know, form design is where I spend a lot of my days. But now we're ready to do some really cool interactive stuff. So I've got let's go ahead and collapse all of our layers to make sure it's a lot easier to grab. Okay. Okay, I'm going to Control C or Command C to copy all these. I'm going to go into Assemble and Ship. Now these are already pre-wired up. I'm not going to use those. I'm going to paste right here. Give myself a fair amount of space so I just know that this is the new stuff. Okay, so now we're going to just show you the prototyping area. We've been spending most of our time in design, but on the right hand side we'll go to prototype, and we're going to just connect these things together. Okay, let's zoom in. So news, we don't need to really wire this up to anything because you're on the news page. We'll do that in a different screen. And there's ways to save ourselves time on these components and adjusting where they go to on a different level. That's not for this kind of exercise. We're just doing really basic prototyping. So I'm going to actually do my wiring up for the Minecraft Job Edition because that's going to go point us to the next screen down. So you see this little circle here? I'm going to go ahead and drag that to this screen. And you know it's hitting that screen in particular because the blue line is over the entire width and top of the screen, and it's also calling out the name of app layout. Okay, so on click, it's going to navigate to app layout. And these names aren't really intuitive. Let's do ourselves a little bit of a favor and rename these really quickly. So app layout selected. I'm going to hit Command R or Control R to rename. R for rename. I'll call this news. Hit enter. Okay, it's got a better name. App layout. I'm going to rename this Java for the Java edition. For dungeons, or for this one, I'm going to call this one Dungeons. Control R, Dungeons. And finally down here, I'm going to rename this to Settings. Great. Let's go back and check out that link I set up. Okay. Now you can see that the interaction is when you click, it's going to take you to the Java screen. That way you kind of know what you're taking people to in case there's any errors. All right, so this one, I'm going to zoom out to make this easier. Cool. Scroll down a little bit. So I'm going to grab that circle, take it down to Dungeons. Great. And then finally Settings is going to go down here to Settings. Okay, let's test it out before we go any further. And I'm going to go ahead and take this little play button right here. This indicates when you do the prototyping kind of preview where you're going to start off at. So I'm going to click on this, drag it over here, snap into place. All right, I'm going to go up here and click the play button, and the new tab is opened up, and I can see that it'll work. Now there's no way to get back. Well, I can use my arrow keys actually, because I haven't wired up the clicking to the other ones here. But you can use your arrow keys to go through all your different screens. So I'm using forward and backward arrow keys, or left and right. All right, let's go back and let's fix up the rest of these, and we'll be done. Okay, so we've done all the connections for the news screen. Let's do the Java screen now. All right, so with news, we can now go back up to news. With the Java edition, we don't have to because we're on the Java screen. For Dungeons, we can go down to Dungeons. And then for Settings, we'll go down to Settings. Okay. All right, now for Dungeons, let's get our news wired up. Let's get our Java edition wired up. We don't have to do Dungeons because we're on the page. Settings goes down to Settings. Cool. And now let's take care of this. All right, so news goes up to news. Java goes to Java. Dungeons goes to Dungeons. We don't have to do settings because we're on the settings page. So we should be done. Okay? Let's go ahead and click that play button. We have a new tab open. All right. So you're seeing some previews here. This is a good way to debug to start off with, but when you actually show this to other folks, you don't want to have that stuff there. When I do usability testing on my prototypes for work, my researchers always ask for me to disable these kind of hints. Okay, so looks like things are working. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and remove the hints. So show hotspot hints on click. Remove that. And here is our fully functioning prototype. Everything I've shown you is available to you in this file. I will be putting this file link in the description below this video, and you can just take it and do whatever you want with it for non-commercial purposes. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.